Hi, David Vizard here, and you are watching PowerTec Town. In this episode 33 of PowerTec Town, I'm going to do the introduction to a project I'm doing with my good buddy Andy Wood, who's got his own channel, and Uncle Tony, who many of you will recognize by name, as he has a big 250,000 subscriber channel which covers automotive things in general. Now, we've got together on this because, well, three reasons. Three. Arthritis is really bad. And it's because A, Tony is a Chrysler fan, as is Andy. Now, I'm a Chrysler neophyte. Even though I raced one, it was a completely different vehicle. It was Chrysler UK. And what we have in common is we're all supporting St. Jude's. So we're doing a project that was the brainchild of Uncle Tony, where we take a 318-inch Chrysler and we see how much power we can get, initially at least, by just removing metal. We're going to see if we can make 1 horsepower per cubic inch on the original carburetor. Now, the only new parts initially that we're going to allow ourselves is new pistons, because we've got to bore the block. New valves and guides, because they're worn on the cylinder head. And bearings and rings, and obviously gaskets. And that's almost about it. All the mods that we're going to make will actually involve machining, grinding, or even hacksawing, right? For instance, we have to take metal out to bore the block. We're going to deck the block. We are going to port the cylinder head. In fact, we're going to port the hell out of the cylinder head, because the power we make will depend on having the freest flowing head possible, so that all the induction pulse depression occurs across the carburetor. Well, we'll never get all of it across the carburetor, but we need to get as much as possible. That's the secret to getting limited carburation to work. And other things like the camshaft, we're going to have Steve Demas, I'll put his name across there, grind our cam for us, because he's going to grind the original camshaft. We're going to grind it just enough not to go through any heat treatment on it, so it will be only a minor modification, and so on and so forth, right? I can't think of anything else. Oh, we've got to grind the crank. It looks like it's scored on one bearing, so we might as well grind the whole lot. So there is a plan that we can stroke the crank by about 30 thousandths, maybe a bit less, but that's going to give us nearly 60 thousandths more stroke, so that'll be more cubic inches. And it's all things like this that we're going to do. So that's our goal there. Now, after that, we've dynoed that, then things change. But tell you what, I'll let Andy tell you all about that, because he and Tony are getting as thick as thieves on this, so they've got some plans for after. I'm making some suggestions, but hey, this is Tony's project. Right, on with the plot. There are a few things that we've got to buy additionally, and a few deals that we are going to incorporate, and I'll get to those in a while. Now, right now, let me introduce Andy, and if you haven't checked it out, he's got a video on his channel. I'll put the deal across the bottom of the screen, and it's very nicely done. Got the jump on me there. He got his out almost straight away, and the reason is he's very gifted at these things. What you see on his channel is the first take, virtually no editing. I can't do that, right? What you see is greatly fixed. Anyway, here's Andy.
As hot rodders, we typically live in our own box. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're a Ford guy, you typically just mess with Ford engines. Chevrolet, Chrysler, it's all the same. We pretty much live in our own environment, and we never really get a chance to explore the other brands. Unless you're an automotive machine shop, you typically don't have Ford, Chevrolet, and Mopar blocks in the shop. You know, it just doesn't happen. But today we have a special opportunity, is going to be comparing the small blocks from Ford, Chrysler, and GM, or Chevrolet rather. What do you think, David?
We're all set to go here, and I think the first thing, Andy, is to show them the block and then give them a rundown on the weight. Right, we've got this block here at 160. Right, I was surprised that it weighed that little.
Yeah.
The Ford 127, and the Chevrolet with the caps on is 172.
That is crazy.
It is, and as Andy pointed out, the Chevrolet block is only 9 inches deck, whereas the Chrysler block is 9.5 something. Right, now I can understand the Ford being lighter than the Chrysler block because it's only an 8.2 deck. It's a whole inch and something shorter. But why is the Chevrolet block so heavy compared with the Chrysler block? Well, we're just going through to measure the stuff up. Now, a brief inspection of the Chrysler block reveals that they're pretty stout here, and this is a place where under high RPM and a lot of horsepower, blocks can break. Now, that's a pretty respectable thickness there. It's thicker than the Ford one.
Oh, absolutely.
But the Ford blocks don't necessarily break here. They may break a mains cap, right, or they split down the middle. But this block here, the stock block, is limited to about 500 and a little bit over 500 horsepower. We have heard of these blocks with boost on going a lot more than that. So the block in this case looks pretty good. Now if we go and look at the Chevrolet block, right, here's what we, as a factory deal, here's our prime choice, right, 4-bolt block. But better yet is to get a 2-bolt block and put the splay caps in it. See, we've got the angled bolt holes, because these splay caps keep the block from moving like this. I was told by one of my friends at GM Performance that this meant 1% nickel and 2% chrome. Or it might have been around the other way, but I'm pretty sure it was 1% nickel, 2% chrome. So this is what I've been led to believe, but now I'm hearing things to the contrary, right? So still more coming in on that. Let's hear what everybody else has to say. Now if you've got a Ford, a small block Ford, to handle much more than 500 horsepower, you're going to have to do something serious. Now this is a serious modification here. These are the caps which peg the block so that it cannot move that way or that way. I don't know if you can see that there. These are done by Checkered Flag. I'll put the address across the bottom. And this block here, well, not this one, but this block modified in this manner has gone up to 1,000 horsepower without braking. They've lasted 800 horsepower for a couple of seasons on the drag strip for a turbo motor. So I'm thinking that it's pretty good. But as good as it is, that block over there, this block here, can handle way more than 500 horsepower just as it is. Right? So this is one of the reasons why I think we should consider Chrysler blocks or Chrysler based builds more often than we do. Still on the theme of the Chrysler being a pretty stout piece, look at this rod here. Now I don't have a small block Chevy one to compare it with, but it's a long rod. It's almost as beefy as a big block Chevy rod, which is nigh on indestructible. Now it's carrying quite a bit of weight, so we can take a lot off and still have a rod that will take a lot of RPM and a lot of horsepower. Piston, stock one's too heavy. And the other thing that's of importance is it's a floating pin in the rod. So that's good. We don't have to do anything, and there's no wear on these. These are Tony's rods, by the way, for our project. So these rods here, we may have the big end here reconditioned, but outside of that, nothing. Right, but I am going to lighten them all up and make them look real purty. You know, Andy raised a good point here. Why isn't the Chrysler more popular? Well, it's simple. But I'll let him explain that, right? Because he'll run right through it like a knife through butter.
So when you're talking about performance and availability and popularity, it's a pretty big subject. We know that the small block Chevy became the performance darling. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I have a theory as to why that came to be. You're looking at architecture that was originated in 1955. Okay, so let's go over here to the Ford. The 260 cubic inch Ford, or 221 rather, came out in 1962. Okay, so it is 7 years behind the small block Chevy. And then when we get to the Chrysler here, the LA Chrysler, that was introduced in 1964 as a 273 cubic inch engine. So as you can see, the availability of these engines, later you had a surplus of these small block Chevys in the junkyard that didn't exist for Ford and Chrysler. So Chevrolet automatically had a head start on the game. And thinking about 1964, that debuted as a 273 cubic inch engine, whereas in the small block Chevy, by that time, you already had a 327 cubic inch engine. So which one would you build? We hope you liked this video. It was fun being with DV here again. And until next time, this is Andy from Unity Motorsport. David Vizard here. We will catch you later. Say catch you later.
Catch you later.